Hello and welcome to the Brutal Iron Gym podcast, where our goal is to cut through the BS and deliver the brutal truth about topics related to health and happiness. Today's podcast number 1641. The topic is mindset, and the title is, What Do You Think? I was listening to a podcast, and this phrase came up. It's a quote. You aren't what you think you are, but what you think you are. And I love that. I love it in part because you have to listen to it 5 times to understand it, but also it's so empowering. So I'm going to say it again. You aren't what you think you are, but what you think you are. So the reason why I love this is I can identify with this. When I first started kind of my whole fitness journey, I started when I was 15 years old. I had a realization. I was kind of playing with a friend. We were kind of teasing each other, and they said, well, at least I'm not fat. And up until that moment, I wouldn't have thought of myself as fat. If you had asked me, I would have said, oh, okay, yeah, I have fat on me. I had no visible abs whatsoever. You couldn't see a vein. You'd have to cut a layer of blubber off of me to see a vein. But I wouldn't have thought that I was fat. I was kind of like skinny fat. I was fat, but you didn't see it unless I took my shirt off, that kind of thing. So when he said that, he goes, well, at least I'm not fat. I was like, oh, damn. And it was part of a realization that I didn't like being called fat. And I didn't blame him. I mean, if I was fat and he could call me fat, then it's my problem for being fat. So if I don't like somebody calling me lazy, it's my job not to be lazy. If I don't like somebody calling me, a liar, it's my job not to lie. Whatever the character thing is that I'm getting called out on, it's my job not to make that true, not theirs to pretend like it's not true. Does that make sense? So I was like, well, this is bull crap. I don't like that. I just didn't like that I became something that somebody could use against me. Somebody could say, hey, you are this way, and I would not like it. And it was because of myself. I was like, damn, I got to get this together, So I was thinking to myself at the time, I was very aggressive, very mentally aggressive. So I've had to heal and kind of work on that. But I thought to myself you're fat and weak. And you're fat and weak because you're weak mentally. If you no longer want to be fat and physically weak, then you have to become mentally stronger. So that's kind of the mindset I had, there was this fat and weak Rob, and then there was this version of Rob that looked at that fat and weak Rob and said, screw this shit. That's not me. That's not who I want to be. So there became this kind of disassociation with who I was internally versus the body that I was displaying externally. And I didn't like it. I didn't like that who I felt like I was and who I could be wasn't reflected outwardly. So I freaking hated it. I hated that version of myself. So I was determined to kill that version of myself and create a new self. I wanted to push myself into mental discomfort because if I could become mentally stronger, it would allow me to become physically stronger, which would then allow me to be, leaner and have more muscle. So I got a heavy punching bag, a heavy bag for punching. And I remember I would punch that thing until my knuckles bled, my skin bled. And then I would keep punching it. I remember I did bicep curls until my hands literally could not hold on to the bar. It wasn't that it hurt so bad and I had to hurry up and let go. My hands physically opened up and I couldn't hold the bar and the bar fell to the floor. I restricted food. I was actually anorexic for a year and a half. And when I had hunger pains, the second I felt them, I was like, okay, now it begins. Now's the chance for me to become stronger. And I learned to disassociate myself from hunger. I actually had to relearn what hungry was so I could correct that later on in life and become healthier. But I actually disassociated from the feeling of hunger. I learned to love self-challenges because every single second that I could endure of pain and misery, I was becoming that much stronger. That was insanely unhealthy. And I would not recommend that to anyone. But, damn, did it work. I thought of myself as weak, so I changed it. I became strong. I have since tried about 4 billion experiments and disciplines and have been very successful. So when I put my mind to something, I can do it. So much so that I have to be very careful about what I decide to do. Because once I decide to do it, it's getting done regardless of what the hell gets crushed in the process. So I have to be very careful with myself. And I've actually had to learn how to give 80% to something while saving the 20% for other things, and learning sometimes that giving partial percentage to certain things is actually more of a mental discipline than giving 100% to something and 0% to everything else. You can't just let go of everything else in life. As I've gotten older, especially as I've, kind of opened my own business and welcomed other people into my life and developed relationships and stuff, you have to kind of navigate everything at percentages. And that is way harder mentally than just saying screw everything and focusing on one thing. So it's been an evolution, and I'm still going through it. Absolutely. I hope I do. I hope I'm always evolving. But I'm still processing through that. But what I thought was amazing was that there was this version of myself I didn't like. And I believed that I could change it. And I did. So what do you think? When you describe yourself, what words do you use? When I was younger, I used fat and lazy. Not my favorite words. Not very kind. What words do you use? When you think of yourself, when you try to describe yourself, what do you think? Do you say, I never finish anything? I always talk about what I'm going to do, but I never do it. I'm a loser. I fail at everything, so why even try? What do you think? We often believe that what we think is true. That what we think is the result of facts. But what are the counter facts? Like, do you believe that you never finish anything? If so, can you make a list of things that you've actually finished? Don't qualify them. So don't discredit them. Just make a list. Doesn't matter if it's, like the significance of it. Just make a list. Did you finish high school? Did you, at one point in time, get a new job and now that's become your job? Maybe, did you buy a house? Or if you're, under the age 40, have you rented an apartment? Have you made friends? Do you currently have a hobby that you still do regularly? Have you recently finished a Netflix series? You have likely finished things. You've probably finished many things in your life. But you often discredit those things, right? So they don't count. If you think, I'm a loser, well, what have you won? What have you tried to do and you actually succeeded at? You could probably name things. Often we can name things that are counter to what we believe, but we discredit those things, right? So we end up believing negative things about ourselves, even though there's proof that those beliefs aren't entirely true. They're not 100% true. There are some counter-truths. This means that we have capacity to believe things that aren't true. Yeah. So if we believe those negative things about ourselves, but yet we can still name counter things. I believe I'm a loser, but I have actually made friends and I do have a job that I haven't got fired from. It's not like a total loser, right? So there's something you believe to be true, but it's not entirely true. Well, the problem with that is that if we believe negative things, they perpetuate negative actions, negative outcomes. If we don't believe that we ever fully finish everything, we never fully commit. If we don't believe that we can handle tough and hard things, then we stop at the first obstacle. If we don't think we can be successfully, we continually shut ourselves down before we even try, due to a partial truth. You have failed things, yeah, but you've also succeeded at things. You've been a loser at things, but you've also won some things. So you believe partial negatives. And because you believe partial negatives, you act in negative ways. What if we believed in partial positive things? What if we believed in positive things about ourselves, even if they're not true yet? When I think back to my younger self, I believed that I could be mentally tough before I had any reason to believe it. But that belief drove me to fulfill it. I believed a partial truth. And that partial truth propelled me into positive action. I believed I could do it, therefore I act in a way that did it. I did the things that did the doing because I believed I could. What if you believed that you could finish things? That you could continue to learn more, figure out more, experiment more. That you could continue to put in work and become successful. What if what you believed it into becoming true? Instead of believing negative things that perpetuate negative actions, what if we believed positive things, even if they're not true yet? We believed that we had potential for them to be true. How different would your actions be if you believed it could be true? You aren't what you think you are, but what you think you are. If you think positively, you will act positively. If you want things to be different, think differently. If you think differently, if you think positively, you can think your way into action, into progression, into pushing through adversity. Think of what you want to be and then act in that way. Do what that version of you would do. If you think it, you act it, and you can become it. This is why I love these kind of quotes, these concepts, these motivational aspects, because if you can change what's between your ears, you can change the world that's around you. So I encourage you, if you currently think negative things about yourself, recognize that there are counters to those things. There actually are positive aspects. There are things that you've done well at in life. You're a good person. You can do good things. You can do challenging things. If you believe that that's true, then you'll act on it and you'll make it true. If you want things to be different, think differently. That's where it all starts. Okay? I hope it motivates you into some action. I hope you can be a little more positive, a little nicer to yourself, and believe that better things are coming your way if you act on them and continue to push for them. Okay. Well, if there's ever anything I can do for you, let me know. My email is brutalironjim@gmail.com. I appreciate you listening to the podcast. If it's been helpful in your life, please share that it has been helpful in your life with others so it encourages them to listen to the podcast as well. Thank you to those who donate to support the podcast. I appreciate the donations. They help go towards the hosting costs and to the time devoted to the podcast every day. Every dollar helps. It's absolutely significant. Thank you very much for those who donate, and you can do that on our website if you'd like to. If you'd like the information we share in our podcast, you can find more from us on our social media channels. You can find us and follow us on Instagram and YouTube under the name Brutal Iron Jim. As always, I hope this was helpful, and thank you for listening.